UFC Fight Island 3, Whitaker versus Teal. It's going to be live Saturday. Should be a bunch of good fights on this card. A lot of big names on the main card. There's 7 fights on the main card, which is more than usual. I'm excited about it. Let's get into it. Here's my predictions. The first fight on the main card is between Khamzat Chimaev and Rhys McKee. I don't know much about Rhys McKee. I don't know much about Chimaev, but I did watch Chimaev fight last Wednesday, where he just demolished John Phillips. The way he was able to do that, I don't see many people stopping him until he gets to that top rank of opponents. So I would imagine that this fight's going to go somewhat similarly. I'm predicting Chimaev by submission, whether that's that Darce choke that he put on Phillips, or really anything else he's comfortable with. This guy looks like a monster, and I don't see anybody taking him out for at least a few fights. The second fight on the main card is Alex Oliveira versus Peter Sobotta. I like Cowboy in this one. He's an entertaining fighter. I always enjoy watching him, and this is a name that's been steadily competing in the UFC for a good while. Since 2015, over the past 5 years, he's got 17 fights. Look at my notes here. He's 10-6-1 in that time. It's a pretty good record, especially when you consider that he's fought a bunch of good guys. Sobotta, however, has not been nearly as active. He's on his second stint in the UFC. He's fought in a few various promotions in between, but he hasn't been nearly as active. He hasn't fought since March, I guess, of 2018, which Oliveira has fought 6 times since then. So obviously more active, probably more in the flow of things. And worthy of pointing out is that Oliveira has lost 3 of his last 4 fights. That may not look good, but I think he's going to be hungry. I think he's going to be focused, and I think he'll take care of it. I think that Oliveira will be able to pull this one off. Fight 3 on the main card is the fight between the easiest name to pronounce and the hardest one to pronounce, and that is Paul Craig versus Gadzhimurad Antigulov. This one should be a pretty good one, I think. It'll probably be a grappling and submission fight. Both guys seem to prefer this. I'm going to go Paul Craig by submission. Like I said, both of these guys seem to prefer submissions. Craig has 11 of his 12 wins by submission, and that's out of 17 fights. So 11 out of 17, period. 11 out of 12 victories. Antigulov, on the other hand, he's got 26 fights professionally, so a bit more seasoned. And of those 26 fights, 20 are wins, and 15 of those wins came by by submission. So I would look for that to kind of go the same way. Both of them are probably going to be looking to get it on the ground and get some type of submission. I like Paul Craig. I feel like his game doesn't necessarily reflect his look. He's a big guy who looks like he wants to throw hammers. I enjoy watching him. I think he's going to be able to get this one. I don't know how, but I do think it's going to end with a tap out. Next fight on the main card is the only women's fight on the main card. It'll be between Carla Esparza and Mariana Rodriguez. This is probably the only one on the main card that I feel very confident will go to decision. Both of these gals tend to get to decision. But I'm going to choose Mariana Rodriguez. She's undefeated right now. She does have 2 draws on her record, but she's undefeated, and I don't expect that to change this Saturday. They have 2 common opponents, those being Randa Markos and Cynthia Calvillo. In the Randa Markos fight, Carla lost and Mariana drew. In the Cynthia Calvillo fight, Carla won and Mariana drew. However, there was a pretty good gap in time as to when those fights took place. With Carla, it was a while back. With Mariana, it was, I believe, her last fight. And Cynthia has, of course, really improved her game in that time. I think this is going to be a close one, but My money's on Mariano Rodriguez pulling this one out either in a split decision, majority decision, or unanimous decision. Fabricio Verdum is taking on Alexander Gustafsson. I'm excited about this fight. I've enjoyed watching both of these guys throughout their career. I think most of us have. These are some big names. I'm going to call Verdum by submission at some point. First off, Gus is moving up into heavyweight. He's spent his career at light heavyweight, and I'm really not sure if this is a good move for him. I'm not sure it's going to be his natural weight class. Verdum will likely come in much larger and much healthier. That's my suspicion. Furthermore, I feel like Gus has peaked. When he fought John in that first title fight, he looked really good. He gave John Jones a run for his money. But I think that was the top of his game. I think that he peaked in that night, and he won't ever really acquire that form again. Since then, he's gone 3-2, 3 wins, 2 losses. And like I said, I don't think he's going to be able to get that form back. Verdum, on the other hand, I think that he's not on his best days either, but he's still in them, I think. I personally think that he's one of the most underrated heavyweights out there. Probably the most underrated heavyweight champion that we've seen. Now, Gus has also been retired, granted for only a year, but he has been retired. He probably spent the first part of that year enjoying life and eating too much. Can't blame him for it. But Verdum, on the other hand, he's a lifelong jiu-jitsu practitioner, a lifelong MMA fighter. I just don't see him ever taking a day off. I'm sure he's been active all the time. So, like I said, I think he'll come in healthier and more at his natural weight. So I'm taking Verdum. I think that really the big thing here is, can he avoid Gus's strikes? And if so, if he's successful in doing that, I don't think it's going to be a real difficult night out for him. The co-main event will be between Little Nog and one of my favorite fighters ever, Shogun Rua. I've always enjoyed watching Shogun fight. He's dynamic, he's explosive, and he just kind of has that something special. And I'm picking Shogun. I think he'll win either by KO or TKO. First of all, if history teaches us anything, we got to take note that they've shared the octagon twice. And Shogun has come out on top both times. Granted, they were both decisions, but they both ended with Shogun's hand raised nonetheless. We also got to think about the age here. We've been watching Shogun and Little Nog both for a very long time. They're both getting very old as far as the fight game is concerned, and their careers are most likely coming to a close. Little Nog is 44 years old, I believe, and Shogun, I think, is 38. So that's 6 years, and that's a big 6 years between 38 and 44. So Little Nog, we've been watching his career kind of taper off, I think. Over the past 6 years, since 2014, Little Nog is 2-4, and he's been knocked out 3 times during those 6 years. That really adds up, especially at this stage in his career, at this age. Inversely, over Shogun's last 6 fights, he's 4-1-1. So he's proven he can still do it. He still has that taste of victory in his mouth. So I think that the age and the recent experience and lack of punishment on Shogun's part is really going to be a deciding factor. Both of these guys, as we've seen over their careers, they both have that something special. They both have that X factor. But the force is strong in Shogun. It always has been. And my money's on Shogun again. And the main event of the evening, of course, is Robert Whitaker versus Darren Till. Now, this fight at middleweight has more ramifications than any others on the card. Of course, that's why it's the main event. And I'm going to call Robert Whitaker by KO. A lot of people have said that Whitaker's just not the same since those Romero fights. Of course, he didn't look real good against Adesanya. Got knocked out and lost his belt. But I don't necessarily buy it. I think that it was less of his exposure to Romero and more of his exposure to that gold strap. Robert's personality is not one that screams, "Look at me, I want the attention." I think he was a little spread thin by all the attention he was getting. He doesn't have that added pressure of being a champ. I think he's going to be hungry again and refocused. Where on the other side, we've got Darren Till, who's always goofing off. I'm not going to knock him for that. That's his personality. But we've seen him making fun of Mike Perry, making videos all the time while he's sweating in the sauna. I just think that Robert's going to have his head in a better spot. Now, both of these guys are very tough. But I just think that Whitaker has more ways to win here. I think that he's a more well-rounded MMA fighter. I think he's kind of better everywhere. I think his stand-up is a bit trickier, a bit slicker. He's able to lay more traps. I think he punches harder. I think his wrestling, offense, and defense will prove to be better. I think his ground game is better. So I just think that if Teal's going to win, it's going to be a very narrow path to that victory where Whitaker can kind of choose his own adventure. Furthermore, I don't know if middleweight is really Till's best weight class. He's only fought once at middleweight in the past 6 years, and that was against Kelvin Gastelum, who that fight just wasn't a lot of fun. There wasn't a lot of engaging going on. It was kind of boring. I think that Robert's going to press the action a lot more and may tire Till out. I just wasn't very impressed with that fight, with the Gastelum and Till fight. Colin Whitaker, I think he gets back into form. I think we see the Robert Whitaker of old, but I do think it's going to be fun and entertaining to watch. So those are my predictions for UFC Fight Island 3, Whitaker versus Till. It's going to be a good night of fights, I believe. I can't wait to watch them and see how right or wrong I happen to be. We'll do a recap after the event. Until then.
Whoosh.